Hello everybody and welcome back to Let's Play Dark Souls. I'm your host VGMKoren, and in the last one we killed the bell gargoyles, rang the first bell of the undead, and then came back down here to kill a Titanite demon, did that, and entered the garden, which we will be exploring in this episode. So last episode was actually rather eventful, and I'm glad that we got so much done there, because Dark Souls is actually an extremely long game, and I am not very far into it, as you might have guessed. Get out of here, mouse. Stop being at the bottom of the screen. I have tried to deal with that several times now. I don't know why it keeps popping up. Regardless, oh, it feels good to be recording again. I know that this episode is a little late for you who watch my videos regularly. I am sorry about that. Real life has a funny way of coming in and saying, hey, you don't get time to record. But now I am here, I am back, and did that say beware bean people or bean pole? Because either way, it's accurate. The enemies in Darkroot Garden are, well, they're trees. Oh, watch that. That's a grab. It will do a fairly significant amount of damage if it gets you, and it will usually try and back away. Thankfully, these enemies don't actually have shields, so they become much weaker than most. Now, when you kill them, you're going to occasionally get different moss clumps. These are extremely useful and something that you definitely need. Now, actually, this is a completely optional area for... Oh, that's... Oh, God. It's a tree. This is a completely optional area for this point in the game. You don't have to come here pretty much at all, if I think about it. Oh, and this... Okay, that's not the way I want to go just yet. We will be going this way, but later. There are other things I want to do in this forest before going down there. Like many things in Dark Souls, there's already several different paths we could be going down, and that's part of what makes it fun. However, I'm going for a very specific boss toward the end of the garden itself before we wrap back around through the forest. And that is kind of my planned order of things, and I do intend to do this in part because I am a giant wimp, and I have no desire to fight the next story boss, who destroys me, as a gentle way of putting it. Oh, the next story boss is actually probably my personal worst fight in the game. I'm just not good at fighting it. Also, as you might notice, I'm doing significantly more damage with my heavy attack than my light attack here. This is because stabbing damage and slashing damage are very different things, and this is actually why I think the Uchigatana is such a good weapon, especially for dex builds, is it has access to both. Where a lot of the other weapons, and particularly the other katana that's used a lot, doesn't have a stab attack, and it can be very useful in certain situations. So let's go ahead and do something that no one would ever figure out. Wait, is it not there? Where is it? Is it here? Yep, it's here. Invisible wall for a bonfire. Isn't that fun? Dark Souls is filled with these kind of things where, unless you know, you won't know. And that actually is, generally speaking, the point. Let's just go ahead and poke this. Locked by some contraption. Hooray! That is the point of Dark Souls, and the messages on the ground is usually you'll see great things like trap here, or hit the wall, or dumb. You know, some combination and variety of all those abilities. So yes, what was I talking about? Oh, it was the fact that I'm going to get mauled by 3 tree beasts. Actually, probably not, because... Okay, never mind. I take back my cocky swagger, and I would like to put it away. Now, as you can see, because of the range they have on their attacks, you can actually kind of get into a bad situation, because really you want to be up close to them, but once you're up close to them, obviously it's very hard to guard against all their attacks. Thankfully, their attacks require extremely little stamina to block. So, as long as you can keep your shield up and interrupt their attacks as they're coming for you, you shouldn't have too much trouble. Or you might get murdered. You know, it's really 1.5 dozen or the other. But I think that's actually all that's over here. I'm sure that I've already missed a path in here. I know that... Oh, wait, no. I think all the paths that I can miss and probably will miss are down beyond this fog wall, which does not have a boss behind it. I'm sorry for everyone who wants to see me get murdered instantly. However, what we do have is a tree. Can I hit this tree? Yes. This is an evil tree that can be destroyed, and your way of noticing this is, hey, it's wiggling. Trees that wiggle, actually I think the other katana may have a jumping stab attack. I might be entirely wrong about that, but regardless, you have a one-handed stab attack that's easier to use than a jumping attack and has less recoil. But yes, in Dark Souls, occasionally you can kill even the trees. Thankfully, trees don't come back when you kill them, because deforestation is a serious issue. I actually don't remember what's down here aside from a giant goopy flawn. This is where Dark Souls enemies start getting a little bit weirder. And this thing I think is probably... Oh, okay, fall through the geometry, that's fine. Can I kill this tree? No. I hate when things fall through the level. It's very disconcerting. And hey, look, it's another wiggly tree. Just what everyone always wanted. So, yeah, also it takes less stamina, but regardless, wiggling trees often mean that there's treasure, or at least a giant red goopy thing that you can kill. This is one of the more... Or this is one of the areas that's easier to get turned around in. I think, however, this is just a shortcut to where we're eventually aiming to go. Is it? It's hard for me to tell. Let's find out. Usually in big open areas like this, it's safest to run along the edges of the walls because you're going to aggro the fewest enemies when you're doing this to try and look around, and you can get a better sense of your surrounding. Nope, I have no idea where I am, actually. That is not usual. I don't remember this area. That's actually extremely unusual for me in this game. But to be fair, this is also one of my most hated areas in the game because of a different enemy, which I'm not fighting. And these things are so gross and weird, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all. But at least we can murder them all and get some good treasure while we're at it, and some souls. Both extremely useful things. Really, I don't remember this area, and I'm not entirely sure there was a point in coming down here, but, you know, once you're down here, there's no point in leaving. At least not without looking around first. Now I'm going to go ahead and start fighting one of the enemies I hate in this area. And that is this giant stone knight. He is a terrible, terrible person. Now, as you can see, you can do very little damage to them, and what you have to be most afraid of is the spell he just cast. As you might notice, my movement speed is now nothing. Thankfully, for a heavier character like I'm playing, this isn't as much of a big deal. Kicking their shields, by the way, won't deal that much. But for light characters that are mostly focused on dodging, you might end up having trouble with these guys. Now, they have a large HP pool, they don't die easily, and that makes them pretty much an average Dark Souls enemy, I guess. Oh, I hate fighting these things. They have so much defense for this part of the game, and as you can see, they do crazy damage. Actually, pretty much wherever you go right now, you're going to be dealing with enemies that can deal significantly more damage than you. This is one of the things about Dark Souls' open-ended approach, is that you will come across enemies and areas and times where you just aren't really ready to fight enemies, but you have to anyway. And of course, I haven't played for a little bit, so my timing might be slightly off. Where the hell am I? This is not normal. Oh, well, so much for having a very calm and professional episode, you know, when it's like, oh, I don't know where I am. Look how much of a noob at Dark Souls I am. Oh, well, It's kind of just what happens. I'm sure I've been down this path. It just doesn't ring a bell for some reason. And no, I have no idea where I'm going. Except I'm going to be fighting another one of these guys, apparently. So that's fun. Now, you can occasionally get some good hits in while they're standing up, and that's probably what I should be doing overall. But, and I think this is what's going to end up happening here, is that we're going to get to the standard side path reward of Dark Souls, which is usually some weapon or item. By the way, if you try and roll while you're walking this slowly, you will regret it. You'll basically just fall over, and I would love to show that off, but I also love not being dead. Because not being dead means I don't have to cut the recording and do fun things like run back to my corpse and make sure I'm not dead. So by stabbing him in his stone-cold crotch, we have finally... No, I'm not going to try jumping. Oh, I could totally make that. I can totally make that. Alright. I did... Oh. Oh. Oh! Okay. No. 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 Come on, geometry. Don't fail me. Well, I probably could have used a homeward bone to avoid that. But on the bright side, that is the wolf ring. It is actually one of the more useful items, and thankfully I should also be able to get my souls back extremely easily because I spent an extended amount of time just standing on that ledge. Which is actually something. If you're going to jump, usually your souls will be back before you jumped, which can be very difficult to retrieve them from, especially if they're at the end of a long path like that. And yes, I do remember that path now, and yes, you can make that jump successfully if you actually manage to jump. You know. So, I'll go ahead and kill this guy and then bring up that ring, because I believe it's actually fairly useful. Yeah, it boosts poise, and what poise does is it allows you to take more damage without actually getting your animations broken. So now I will be able to withstand more damage and still proceed with my attacks instead of getting knocked out of them and doing that, oh no, I'm so hurt. It also makes you glow, and actually, from an aesthetic point of view, I don't like this effect that much, primarily because I don't like permanently glowing characters. Thankfully, it's a very subtle glow, and not at all like Dark Souls 2, which often has you just furiously foaming red and green colors. It's like Christmas all the time, but that's not exactly what you want, or it's not what I want, anyway. So, with that tree successfully murdered and that side path conquered in the most... Let's see... I'm not going to say competent of ways, but entertaining, maybe. And hey, it's another evil tree and a partisan. Actually, this tree, as you can see... Oh god, he has so much poison damage, I don't want to fight it. But there might be something out there. But there's something behind me. One thing in Dark Souls, and of course, any game like this, and any game made in the past 10 years, in fact, is that you always want to be able to hear what's behind you, otherwise you're probably going to get murdered. But no, we can't kill that tree. Just the snake thing that I don't think shows up anywhere else in the entire game. And by saying that, I'm probably going to fight one in 2 minutes. Hey, is that one right there? No. Thankfully, these stone knights aren't actually all that common in this area, but they are infuriating when you do fight them. Okay. And yes, heavier weapons do tend to do better against these enemies that you only have 1 or 2 opportunities to hit before you have to go back on the defensive for a long time. On the other hand, though, the spell they have, which is Tranquil Walk of Peace, I believe, it makes for a more interesting fight because you can't, you know, flail around madly. And that's something I find missing from a lot of games is combat wasn't or isn't really about flailing around and, you know, taking, you know, jumping in the middle of your attacks. It's more or less about slow, precise movements and then flailing around because, you know, you're gonna die. Or at least, that's how I see it. And it's really Dark Souls realistic. Do I want to say that? Yeah, there's a snake tree right over here, by the way. Die, snake tree. Oh god, they actually come off the trees. I didn't know that. I've never gotten them off the tree like that before. Interesting. One thing I really like about Dark Souls, as I was saying before I got interrupted by very interesting snakes, is that the combat is so very, very methodical and intentional, which, unlike many games, of course, where you're flailing around, it just has a different feel. I'm probably going to die here. Oh, that was lucky. I hate fighting enemies that can deal so much damage. And this is probably about the time... Oh god, no. I should not be alive right now. This is more or less the time where you might want to start considering upgrading your armor. Now, I did say that upgrading armor is something that I think comes after upgrading your weapon, because I am one that believes that if your weapon does more damage, then you're going to get hit less often by the fact that enemies will be dead. And, oh god, oh no. This is what you might call a Dark Souls trap, where you're going to get wrecked, and there's not a lot you can do about it, because of course we have Tranquil Walk of Peace. Oh, it didn't actually hit us. So let's bravely run the other direction and screw whatever probable useless item was on that corpse. For now. As always, corridors, your best friend and mine. Unfortunately... Oh, good. I thought for a second another knight was about to join the battle, and that would have been time to bravely run away once more. Ah, I got eaten. Thankfully, being eaten... Yeah, okay, never mind. It's like, it does less damage, but no, then you get eaten for a good 15 seconds, and you end up so very hurt. Okay. Also, upgrading your shield would be a great option at this point, because the more you upgrade your shield, the less stamina it will consume to block an attack, which, as you can tell, is extremely important. You could also, at this point, start... Well, no, you actually can't invest in any kind of elemental weapon at this point in the game, unless you go to the catacombs, but, you know, that's something not... That's something I'll talk about when I talk about, which will be probably in an area called Anor Londo. So, if you're watching this from the future and want to know more about what I think about Dark Souls, then you can go watch then. Alright, he's dead. Okay, so we're not doing too bad in this area. This area is completely optional, by the way. Kind of. It's optional. Okay, are you going to get up? Of course you are. But that is exactly what I wanted to find. Oh my god, I am so happy that I decided to try and get that instead of... Ooh, that is amazing. That is actually what I've just picked up, is the armor set that I intend to use through the rest of the game. I knew it was lurking around here somewhere. I just wasn't entirely sure where. As it turns out, it's right over here, surrounded by 4 of these guys and 2 stone knights, which makes it extremely useful, actually, that I didn't... Now, you know what? You can glitch out. You can just do that. It makes it extremely useful that I managed to divide that encounter into 2 parts. Because, yes, I am going to go ahead and swap over to that. Now, once you have decided on a armor set to use, I would start upgrading it. Now, the first time you play this game, that's going to be a bit difficult, because what's going to end up happening is you are simply just not going to know what you need to use. But yes, this is our new armor set, which you might also remember from the very beginning of the game as the armor set the knight used initially. I think it's a little heavy on me. I think my movement speed got dropped just a bit, but I don't think I hit that threshold. You know, it's hard for me to tell. The Elite Knight armor is, for its weight, probably one of the best defensive armors in the game. And yes, here we have a boss that, yes, I just walked into with 1 Estus Flask left. But thankfully, it's just a big, pretty butterfly. How bad could it be? It could be really bad. It could be really, really bad. The thing about the Moonlight Butterfly is that unless you're a caster, this boss will screw with you extremely badly. Primarily because it is a tanking fight. And you're just going to have to deal with the fact that you're going to take tons of damage. And essentially, just wait for the opportunity to attack it. Now, as you can see, there's just nothing I can do to attack it at this point. Thankfully, its attacks don't do that much damage, and when it finally decides to get its ass down here, I will be able to do significant damage to it. It just may not decide to do that for a little while. Oh, I hate this boss so much. You might have noticed that I have swapped over to the humanity item, and that was painful. Alright, I will re-meet you at this boss fight. Stupid butterfly thinks it's so cool. I hate this boss. And with a horde of enemies chasing me, I am back at the Moonlight Butterfly. Now, as I was saying, this is a particularly difficult boss, and that shotgun power it has is the most dangerous thing it can do by far. So when you see that, it might be better to try and roll away. This boss is also extremely optional for this point in the game. You do not have to fight it, for now at least, but doing so will net you some significant rewards. And that's essentially why I want to fight it. Unfortunately, it is, for the most part, just a fight you have to wait on. Because, unless you're a mage, you have no means of range attacking, unless you also potentially pick up a crossbow. Now, I don't know if this is necessarily true. No, it's not. I was hoping that I could use the wall as cover, but, well, there you go. It's what you get when you hope. Hope is for the weak, apparently. God, I just healed that damage. I hope I'm going to be able to do this, actually. This fight, in particular, is extremely luck-based. As you could see, that time it decided that the wall counted it as an obstacle. So, take that for what you will. Now, at some point, yes, this will happen. The Moonlight Butterfly will fly down, and you can proceed to beat the ever-loving crap out of it. Now, as you might notice, it actually has extremely low HP, but... oh god, it's going to explode. But that only took out about a third of its HP, which is not really the result I wanted. I was hoping I'd be able to do a little bit more damage by this point in the game, because that will mean that, for the most part, I'm going to need to take this boss fight extremely slowly, which probably means burning humanity as long as I can avoid getting nailed by those all fight long, though it should be okay. And if you decide to come back down, that would be fantastic. Or you could just, you know, fly around being pretty. It is a very pretty butterfly. It's also an infuriating butterfly. Heal whenever you're below half on this boss, simply because if you don't, you run the massive risk of getting instantly nuked down by that shotgun blast. Now, it's not hard to dodge out of the way of the shotgun blast, but you have to dodge it. Shielding it will result in massive amounts of chip damage regardless. And as you can see, it does large damage when you fail to do it. And so we can start beating on it again, and I need to upgrade my stamina a little more. Okay, let's get out of that. Thankfully, he's about half dead. We've got about half of our healing items left. Well, more than half if I start busting into the humanity. I do kind of want to save the humanity for as long as I can, but that simply won't happen. Now, you can also... I can't remember if you get throwing knives by this point in the game, or if throwing knives even exist in Dark Souls 1. I'm pretty sure they do. Oh, you can also throw firebombs at it, I think. But do I have firebombs equipped? No, and now is not exactly the time to be looking. Alright, so, as I was saying, once you have reached a certain point in boss fights, you might decide that you want to win no matter what the cost is. This is the time to start busting into your humanity. Your humanity will always act as a full heal for your character. However, because humanity is so rare, it's generally advisable to try and do boss fights without it. Also because once you burn humanity, it's burnt. It's gone. Good God, come down here, you stupid, stupid butterfly. As you can see, that is the hardest attack of its to avoid. Here he comes again for more getting wrecked awesomeness. We can go ahead and deal a couple hundred damage, and then just take off the third ship. And it looks like I'll be able to kill him after 2 more attempts at this. I could probably get an extra hit or 2 while he's staying down there. And here comes the laser, which also, by the way, can be dodged by rolling. And that's just more or less the thing, is that this is a fight you want to roll on. And now, as you can see, that's why I always want to try and keep high HP, because of the sheer amount of damage that attack can do. And yes, he can cast it while flying. Yes, it's kind of crap. But that's Dark Souls. Here comes another laser, which we will gracefully dodge through in our heavy armor. And as I was saying about armor earlier, oh my god, stop casting that from the sky. You are being a terrible, terrible boss. I have never had this boss take so long before. But I guess I am here a little bit early. Whenever you feel like coming down. Armor. The thing about Dark Souls weapons and armor is that they work a little bit differently than they do in most games. Where most games would say, hey, you can use this weapon and armor, and then you're going to get upgrades, and then you're going to get upgrades for that, and then you're going to get upgrades for that. Dark Souls takes a slightly different approach. Now, I'm actually going to heal up because he's so low, and I don't want to get nailed by one of those beam attacks while he decides to fly through the sky. But Dark Souls, you can use essentially the same weapon and armor for the entire game and not be punished for it, actually. In fact, you'll be rewarded because weapons and armor get significantly more powerful. Now, there are better weapons and armor, but generally speaking, you don't necessarily need to worry about that so much. Especially like the first couple of times through. I don't like this. If I get hit by that, I am going to die. And you might think to yourself, you're being really over-cautious here and burning too much humanity. The thing is that at this point, I have already burned a ton of humanity in this fight. So if I die now, all of that humanity that I've used will go to complete and total waste. This is kind of where it ends up being, well, which is better for you, and that's my take. Oh my god, I am going to kill you, you stupid, stupid butterfly. I hate that thing. But that is the Moonlight Butterfly, and we got the soul of the Moonlight Butterfly to go along with it. A humanity, and not a homeward bone. Most boss fights give you homeward bones. It's actually kind of strange that that didn't. Also, a ton of souls to level up with. Thank God. Oh, hey! I forgot to turn Steam overlay off, so hello. Whoops. And that's the Moonlight Butterfly. Usually you'll want to come here a little bit later in the game once you can do a little bit more damage. Or if you're a mage or bow user of any sort, you can just shoot at it, dodge it, and be done with it in a couple of minutes. That's the only boss in the game, though, that having to go ranged is pretty much your best option. Actually, there's one other boss that is very helpful for ranged, but anyways, here we have the Watchtower Basement Key and the Divine Ember and a Homeward Bone, which clearly is meant to say, leave. Leave now and never come back, which is exactly what I'm going to do. Homeward Bones return you to the last bonfire you rested at. Now, I know this is being a very long video, but I have one more thing I would like to show off before I end the video, because it's only going to take a minute, and also we've done everything down this path of the forest that I want to get done. So yeah, I guess because I haven't recorded in a few days, this video can be a super long one. That's completely fine with me. But yes, Dark Souls is also, well, it's a guide dang it game. Now, the first time you play Dark Souls, I do recommend going in completely blind until you get stuck, because you will get stuck. The game is very obtuse in what you have to do sometimes, and even explaining some of these things that you have to do is kind of ridiculous. As I talk about it, I'm like, wow, how are people supposed to figure that out? It's a fun kind of obtuse, but regardless. Actually, this ring goes perfectly with this armor set, because the increased poise is something that this armor set significantly lacks. But that is okay, because, oh my god, we finally get to come back and get out of this forest, at least until the next episode. Now, you might have remembered that the blacksmith in a previous episode talked about embers, or at least I think he talked about embers. I'm pretty sure. Let's say he talked about embers, regardless of whether he did or he didn't. I have way too much humanity on me. I don't like this. But if you come talk to him...
My, that's a rare ember you have there. I've seen one of those before. It's the ember of a divine blacksmith. Might you consider leaving that with me? I could produce divine weapons with a flame such as that.
Give him the divine ember.
Thanks for that. You've made a fine decision. You soon shall see.
And now we can modify our equipment for Ascension, which is something I'll talk about once we actually get there. Now, instead of leveling up, I actually want to go ahead and buy a bunch of Titanite shards and... oh my god, completely mess up what I'm pushing buttons on, and go ahead and upgrade the Uchikatana once more, and again for good measure. And that makes it a +5 weapon, which, hey, here we have... here we have modifying equipment, and we can make divine weapons, which requires green Titanite shards. And as you can see, it adds faith scaling into the game, or into it, but reduces the dex scaling significantly. So that is something worth talking about in another episode where I haven't already gone on and on and on endlessly. So let's go ahead and purchase a few more Titanite shards, 8 of them, and reinforce armor. Now that I know what I'm doing, I definitely want to do this. And generally speaking, when reinforcing, the chest piece will give you the biggest bang for your buck, but they're all extremely useful to upgrade. And by doing this, I have significantly increased the amount of defense I get out of that. Now I'm going to buy a couple of more. Well, I'll buy one more because I think that I will only have enough for this. Yeah, here we go. I'm going to upgrade the kite shield. Now you can't see it here, but stability, as you can see, increases it by 1, which is actually significant. We will get... well, as I said before, that's because it makes it take less stamina to block things.
Don't get yourself killed. Neither of us want to see you go hollow.
And that's that. Now, I'm going to go back up to this bonfire here because it's actually closer to our next destination. And in the next one, because I've managed to gather so much humanity that I just am dying to lose it, I will show off kindling, reversing hollowing, and a certain fight where it's very easy to just fall to your death and die instantly. And then maybe another fight where it's very easy to just get killed in one hit. I hope to see you then.